Alright girls, so this is part 2, I guess, to graphing. We're actually going to put the function here on a graph. I want to show you how to, or walk you through how to do that. It's not terribly difficult. It's going to be kind of hard to explain not being there, so I'll try to make this as clear as possible. But it's really not too bad. You just kind of got to follow the steps that we started with doing earlier today. So first thing you want to do is, just like we talked about, find those 4 important parts to your function. The first thing you want to find is the amplitude, which again is that first number here, so that will be 2. Then you want to calculate the period, which is 2 pi over b, which is that 2 right there, which reduces to pi. Then h is our vertical or our horizontal shift, and we want to use that number, the opposite of that number, that is. So our h is going to be pi over 4, and sometimes it might be helpful to actually write shift right, because it's positive, pi over 4. That way you at least know which direction you're shifting. And then k is -3, which tells us we want to go down -3. Right? So those are the main things. Now, just like before, we want to kind of refer to this first half, these first 2 steps, just like we did in the original graph. So notice when I drew this graph, and again, if you have graph paper, I highly recommend that, because it's just hard with these. You get the closer to scale and the more organized you are with these graphs, the easier it is. It's easier to count out the shifts and all that stuff. So you want to set it up kind of the same way, 4 hash marks, but notice you want to leave some extra space, because we may, depending on where we shift things, we may need to use some more tick marks over here. So I wouldn't just cut it off there and be done. I would leave some extra room. Maybe not, that might be a bit excessive, but just leave some extra room there. Same with on the x or on the y-axis. So we may be shifting up, so you want to give yourself some room so you can shift it up. So just like before, we take the amplitude and put that up here, 2, and down here, -2. Then we take the period, just like we've done, put it there, and then just start calculating. So halfway, so half of pi would be 2 pi, or pi over 2, sorry. Then half of that would be pi over 4. So each one of these distances, it's important to realize that each distance here, that distance there is pi over 4. This distance is pi over 4, as is each segment here is the length of pi over 4. And it's important to notice, because when we shift pi over 4, that's just this length. So it would just, so whenever we shift right pi over 4, that's just moving one space to the right. So that's pi over 4, that would be, so that would mean this is 3 pi over 4. Then you can just repeat on the negative. So negative pi over 4, negative pi over 2, negative 3 pi over 2, and negative pi. So I like to label everything right off the bat. Now I'm going to use a few different colors here. So what I recommend doing first, there's multiple ways to graph, and over time I'll show you some other ways if this one doesn't make sense. But I think overall this is one of the easier ones to kind of use and manipulate. So what I like to do, and I like to use different colors, so may not be a bad idea for you as well. Just again, organization here is key, because it makes life a little easier. So I go ahead in blue, I'm going to graph this first part, just steps 1 and 2 before I shifted it. So blue, the blue dots are before the shift. Okay, so because it's sine, we start at the origin. Then this first tick mark, the sine graph goes up. The second one crosses in the middle. Third one down here. Fourth one here. And again, if we go negative, similar thing, just kind of repeats. So there, and it's up here, and down there. Okay. Now notice I'm not going to actually connect the dots, because I don't want to put too much on the graph, because then it just gets confusing. It's already, as you're probably seeing, confusing enough. And the reason I did a positive and negative is because it said graph 2 periods of the function, and that's usually just the easiest way to do it. So now with the orange, I'm going to actually show the shifts. Now I usually start with this first point, okay? And notice it says shift right, which is just one of these lengths, because from here to here is pi over 4, so when we're shifting pi over 4, we're just going to the right. So you may even want to just write down in simple layman's terms, over 1, and then this one is saying down 3, so then we're going to go over 1, down 3. So basically what you want to do is for each of these blue points, go over 1 and down 3. So over 1, then down 1, 2, 3. So now this point has shifted over 1 and down to this point. Okay, so this point is now down here. I'm going to do the same thing with this. Over 1, down 1, 2, 3. This point, over 1, down 1, 2, 3. This point, over 1, down 1, 2. And we actually need to draw another tick mark, 3. This point, over 1, so we're going to need to draw a tick mark there. Over 1, down 1, 2, 3. Okay, so make the points that you're using big so you know that these are the new ones. So as you can see, these points are actually in a little sine graph. Now same thing with all these. We don't want to forget the negative. So we go over 1, down 1, 2, 3. We want to go over 1 and down 1, 2, 3. And we want to go over 1 and down 1, 2, 3. Over 1 and down 1, 2, 3. So now these orange points, if we connect the dots, they line up and set up our new sine wave, our new sine graph. So I'm going to go back in and sketch the original. So the original was this blue dotted line. And as you can see, that blue dotted line shifted, each point shifted over 1 and down, over 1 and down, over 1 and down, and this point went over 1 and down. So each point, each of the original points, we went over 1 and down, and that's why we wrote it right here, just so we understood exactly what we were doing, over 1 and down. Sometimes, depending on what the shift is, you may need to go over 2. If the shift had been pi over 2, we would have had to go over all the way over to here. So every movement would have been over 1, 2, and then down 3. So we would have said over 2 and down 3. So hopefully that makes some sense. Let's try one more here. We'll kind of do the same thing. So again, we're going to graph 2 periods of the function, and that function is 3 cosine 1/2 x minus, we'll make it an x plus, and plus 1. Alright, so again, when we set up our graph, I just highly recommend you give yourself some extra room. So we go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, leave yourself some room depending on your shifts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, there's some room there. Alright, so we set up the 3 things that we need to find. We need to find the amplitude. So the amplitude is that first number, so 3. Second number is the period, or second thing we need to find, and that's 2 pi over 1/2. So that's copy dot flop. So then step 3 is figuring out what h is. In this case, it's the opposite of that, so that would be negative 1/2. And if you guys want to do this without me giving you the answers, just pause it. Just pause the video and try graphing it yourself, and then play the video again and see if you can figure it out to check to see if you got it right. So then k, we just take it at its face value. Again, not a bad idea to say, alright, h, that's a shift to the left. We're shifting left pi, and here we're going up 1. So again, we'll go in blue. I'm just going to look at this first part here. So our amplitude is 3, -3, and the period is 4 pi. So I'm going to go ahead and put 4 pi here, and then if we want to do negative, which I recommend, put the -4 pi there. So then that means halfway is going to be 2 pi, and pi, leaving us with 3 pi there. Then this one's going to be kind of the same thing, pi and -3 pi. So unlike the last one, this one, each section here was, the length was pi over 4. This section, or this graph, the length is pi over, is just pi. So length of pi, length of pi, length of pi. So when it says go left pi, that means you're going to take each point and move it just one of these sections, okay? Because each length here is pi. So in blue again, I'm going to go ahead and graph the original, and then the orange will do the shift. So because it's cosine, it starts at 3, crosses over at this middle point, and then again, if you want to do this without me, just pause it and then come back and check to see if you did it right. Okay, and same thing here, and so those blues are all the original. Now over here again, I'm gonna write down what the actual shifts are in kind of layman's terms. So the blue is before, the orange is after, and we're gonna go left because it's negative, and we're going left pi, and because pi is that length, we're gonna go left 1 and then up 1. So for each point on here, we're gonna go left 1 and up 1. That's going to be the move for every single one. If you want to start here, that's fine. If you want to start in the middle, that's fine. It doesn't really matter. So we'll start here this time. So we're going to go left 1, up 1. So that's the new point. And we're going to move here. Left 1, up 1. And we're going to move here. Left 1, up 1. And we're going to do this point. Left 1, up 1. Okay, so again, we went left 1, up 1. Left 1, up. Left, up, left, up. So here, I'm going to go left, up, this point, left, up, left, up, left, up, left, up. Okay, so because we went left 1, we got to make sure we label that, so that'd be -5 pi. Right, so now the orange, we've got our new cosine graph. So there's your new cosine graph. That's the shifted form from this original blue graph. Now again, I'll just draw a couple of the shifts. Just again to point out how we got there. We went over 1, shifted 1, and then up 1. We went over and then up. And again, that's because it said -pi, which each length is pi, so we went left pi, so that means left 1, and then k is up 1, so we went up. So we went left, up, left, up, left, up for each point, and that was your graph. So go ahead and give this a try. This is essentially how you graph all of them. You just got to find these 4 things and plot the originals, and then shift each of your original points based on what they tell you to do here. Okay. Good luck with it. If you have any questions, hang on to them. We'll answer them on Monday. Again, I apologize I'm out, but the little one should be fine by Monday, and we'll spend some time answering questions. We'll do a few of these together on the board, and just kind of go from there. So hope you guys have a great weekend, and we will chat on Monday. Thanks again. Take a look at the homework is posted just below the video on Edmodo, so you can continue doing those, and all of that stuff will be due on well, we'll go over it Monday. I probably won't collect it until next Wednesday, but work on some of it for Monday, because if you get it, let's just get it done and turn it in Monday. Alright, thanks a lot.